Imagine having the highest tier airline status on 3 major US carriers. Well, it happened for my next guest, who was able to achieve Delta Diamond Medallion, American Executive Platinum, and United Premier 1K status all in 1 year. Here's the story of how he got there, including an exhausting mileage run.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So as you know, I've been talking to many people that have been very consistent with their loyalty to one particular carrier. Well, today, my guest is very consistent to not just one carrier, but the 3 major carriers in the United States. He's actually got the highest level status you can attain on all 3. I'd like to welcome Amrish Bandagale to my channel today. Amrish, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for inviting me to your channel. Very happy to be here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you. Can't wait to talk to you about this. This is absolutely fascinating. I don't think I've ever met someone who maintains the highest level of status on multiple carriers all at the same time. So let's just start off by talking about how you got into this. Is this something that's been a passion of yours? Do you love aviation? Do you like getting points? What's your background?
That's a great question. So my interest in aviation started even before I started flying. In fact, it was more about a hobby called aviation photography, or what is commonly known as plane spotting. So, back in the day when I was in school, we used to go like biking to JFK because I used to live in Queens, and, see all these big jets kind of take off from runway 31R and turn around Canarsie, and just be so impressive, right? That hobby sort of kind of evolved over time, where I took up a little bit of flying myself. So rent a helicopter over LAX airport, and some of the shots that you get from there are just breathtaking. And it's a great experience being in an open door helicopter, looking down on aircraft and the airports overall. And about 6 years ago, I had kind of a change in my job profile that entailed a significant amount of flying. And coincidentally, at the same time, I also got into the miles and points hobby. So it was like a nice, confluence of 2 hobbies coming together, combined with my passion for aviation, that resulted in me flying, at the number of flights that I take per year, or the number of miles that I fly every year.
Excellent. Yeah, I've got a similar background too, in terms of the fact that I too am from the same area, and I've gone to those airports. I know those climb outs very well and have taken many photos. So you're currently in the New York City area. What airport is your primary airport that you use to travel out of?
So I work in Midtown Manhattan. I live in central New Jersey. Just from a pure proximity perspective, Newark just works for the usual day in, day out flights. But occasionally I do fly from JFK, sometimes from LaGuardia as well, especially if it's like a regional flight, but primarily Newark.
So you're flying out of Newark, and obviously United's got a huge hub in Newark, and you still managed to get the status on the other carriers too. So that's going to be quite interesting to talk about that. Where do you travel to the most?
So my travel patterns usually are medium to long haul, primarily London, Europe, LA, San Francisco, and then at least about 2 or 3 trips a year to Asia and Australia. So that's usually my travel pattern. As you can tell, my average flight duration is pretty, in the long haul range. It's about 3,000 miles. I just did a calculation the other day. So it's primarily, again, premium travel as well, thanks to, work-related flying. So those are the airports that I usually fly to.
Okay, so definitely the long haul flights are going to get you to those levels of status. I do find that many of the travelers that do get to those high levels are flying primarily international, or very heavily international. I myself, primarily domestic, and I'm always adding in an international flight or so to actually get to that particular point. So it's very unusual to see someone who is able to do this. So do you actually fly the amount of miles that are required in each carrier to get to the highest level? How do you get there?
So when I first started in my new role, it was not a lot of flying, but it was enough for me to get top status on one airline. And again, just because of proximity, I ended up picking United, which worked very well because the top status with United gives you a lot of perks. And I've been kind of enjoying that for the past 5 years. It just happened that in 2019, there was an additional spurt of travel. I ended up traveling about 252,000 miles that year. That's button seat, like flown miles itself. about 70% of those were on revenue flights. And at the start of the year, I knew what was coming, at least in the first half of the year. And I knew I would, requalify for Premier 1K by June. And then some other flights came up, and I'm like, let me try out another airline because the return on investment after you hit the top public status is not a lot, right? And it was actually a very pleasant experience flying Delta for the first half of the year and Delta's partners too. And by June of 2019, I had already gotten to platinum status on Delta. And unlike United and American, where you need to fly about, or need to accumulate rather, 100,000 qualifying miles, with Delta, the bar is higher. You need 125,000. And as a result, as I was planning the latter half of 2019, I realized that I had this great opportunity to potentially, also get top status on American, while at that time I did not have a full picture of how much flying was remaining. So I did a status challenge with American.
Okay.
So I was able to spend about 5,000 EQDs with American and fly about 35,000 EQMs. That got me to the executive platinum status with American. I still had a bunch to go with Delta. So I did a very crazy mileage run in economy, of all things. And turns out that I had a few trips that I didn't anticipate at that time that happened like late November and early December. That looking back, even if I had started from scratch on each of those three airlines, I would have hit the top status on all of those. Although with American, I achieved that using the status challenge.
Hey, it worked. You got to the level of status that you wanted to get to. So
I did. Yep.
Whatever it takes. So tell us a little bit about this mileage run on Delta, all in economy. I'm assuming you went a very long distance to multiple countries, which, okay, right, that seems in line of what you would be doing. How did that work out? Tell us about your routing, why you chose the routing.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very happy to talk about that. It was a pretty crazy routing, everything in economy. So I made sure I purchased a neck support pillow, which ended up becoming more of a back support pillow. But the routing was from LaGuardia in New York to Atlanta, and from Atlanta to Tokyo, Narita, to Singapore, and then back to Narita. And that was my outbound leg. So it was pretty surreal to land in Tokyo knowing that that was my destination and still had to go another 6,000 miles before I actually got out. And then I overnighted in Tokyo. Treated myself to a good round of sushi in the fish market, and then ramen in the morning. And then the return leg was Tokyo Narita to Detroit, to Houston, to Austin, to LAX, and then finally to JFK. So all of these legs were flown in economy, except for one leg, which was the Narita to Detroit leg, which I booked premium economy. Purely because that gave me enough boost on the MQM earnings to get past the diamond threshold.
Right, that makes sense. And when you did this entire trip, when you're flying intra-Asia, were those flights on a SkyTeam partner?
Very good question. So those turned out to be the last ever Delta flights flown between Tokyo, Narita, and Singapore. If you remember, back in September of 2019, Delta retired that route forever after about 30 odd years of flying.
Right,
it's pretty emotional to see all the Delta employees, many of whom unfortunately had to be let go on both the flights, right? Both from Tokyo, Narita to Singapore and back. And it was interesting to just wait at the gate for a couple of hours and just see the plane right there and get back on that and going back to Tokyo on that same plane. But it was a Delta flight. Unfortunately, that flight is canceled, so you can't do that anymore. But I had found this routing through Flier Talk. There is a thread, and there's a very nice gentleman who used to find various airports within the US for the cheapest price to fly to Singapore, because that was the furthest point that you could go, as well as earn a lot of MQMs. So in my case, I had the MQDs about $18,000-$19,000, so I wasn't worried about that. It was more about the MQMs. So interestingly enough, I paid for the fare using my Delta Sky Miles. There is a feature that is pretty unique to Delta, where You can pay your fare using miles, and yet earn MQMs in the process. You don't earn any MQDs, but I was good with that.
I just booked a flight that way today myself, as a matter of fact. So
Oh, beautiful.
yeah,
Great to hear.
it's a great feature. Absolutely. And then your domestic flights, if you're flying, you said you went to Houston and Austin, those are all on Delta, mainline Delta, or just Delta Airlines.
Except for one leg, which I had booked on United. So the entire
That came to mind when you mentioned that city.
yeah, the entire itinerary was actually the entire trip was four different itineraries. One was a one-way outbound from LaGuardia to Atlanta. Then the main trip from Atlanta to Asia and back to Houston. The third itinerary was a one-way United flight from Houston to Austin. And the final one was on Delta again, a separate itinerary from Austin to LAX.
LAX, yeah. Wow, amazing. So you've done quite a bit of flying on that particular routing just to get to your level of status.
Yep. That was about 26,000 miles flown and about 28,000 MQMs earned.
Wow, that'll get you to silver status right away.
That's correct. That's correct. Yep. Yep.
So with the top tier status, what are your favorite things about the three carriers? Let's talk about all of them. The things you like about the best about American, United, and Delta. So a Delta, just for the viewers out there, he has status. He has the diamond level of status, diamond medallion. On United, you've got it slipped my mind again. The name of it. It's
Premier 1K.
Premier 1K. Okay, and in American Airlines, you have
Platinum.
Executive Platinum, right? So, talk about those three different carriers and how you're treated and what your favorite things are that they all provide to you.
Sure. I mean, this is my first year. Still a first year because it's almost like 2020 got canceled. So I haven't yet made full use of the diamond status, unfortunately. But overall, I think with top status on any airline, and most people would argue that the upgrade certificates that you get are really the differentiator, right? Usually at the platinum level, you start seeing most of the benefits that you would otherwise get with top status. But I feel that the upgrade certificates, where you can purchase a flight in economy and then use those certificates or points to upgrade yourself for free or for a very low cost to either business class or book a business class ticket and then upgrade yourself to first class, which on certain airlines is really a luxury. So, over the years, my favorite use of the United upgrade certificates was on business class on Lufthansa and upgrading that to first class. But overall, with the three airlines that I have right now, I feel each of them are very unique in what they offer. Overall, I feel for United, just the flexibility of how you could use these upgrade certificates is tremendous. I could get 8 flights that I can upgrade from either economy to business or business to first by virtue of being a 1K member. And that's huge, right? You could use this for yourself or your friends and family, which is what I do many times. With American is very similar. You get 4 upgrade certificates, but I feel with American Airlines being part of the One World Alliance, you now have access as a One World Emerald member to any partner first class lounge. And that helps me a lot when I'm in Australia, in Sydney specifically on the Qantas First Class Lounge, or in Hong Kong on the very famous Cathay Pacific Wing and Pier lounges. Those are things that I value the most about American, aside from their own first class lounges when you're flying domestic from JFK to LAX. And then finally with Delta, I feel that overall from a service standpoint, right, they are number one. When you have irregular operations, they go above and beyond to help you get to where you are. And that's just being, a diamond medallion. If you need similar service levels like that on United, for example, you would need to be global services. So, which is an invite-only status. So I feel from an overall perspective, every airline is unique. And when you factor in the alliance that they are in, the partners that they have, each of these come with their own unique, I would say, benefits.
And what are some things that you don't like about some of the carriers, if there's anything?
I don't think there is much to dislike, honestly. It's more rather of like improvements that these airlines could make. Like with United, occasionally I've seen like service levels, especially at the gate agents and sometimes even flight attendants, could be better than there is, right? With Delta, I feel like you need maybe a higher level of lounges, I guess. Like if you are familiar with the United lounge system, there is a United Club level, which is for anyone flying domestic usually. But then for international business class passengers, they have the Polaris system, which is pretty amazing. They have like a full restaurant in their lounges, so on and so forth. And then finally, with American, I feel they can improve on their reliability. A lot of times, these flights get delayed at the last moment. Thankfully, I haven't been, haven't experienced a lot of delays there. But I know many of my friends do, and they're not too happy about it.
So you mentioned the lounges. I know that there are some good products in the United States, but international, some of those lounges, you can't beat them. What lounges do you enjoy going to around the world?
I've been to many of them, thankfully. I've been to the one in Doha. It's called the Al Safa Lounge. It's a pretty big facility, and likely you'll find yourself being the only passenger in there, which is pretty amazing for the lounge that size. My favorite one, though, is the Swiss First Class Lounge. Again, pretty exclusive, only first class passengers and their invite only top tier members get access to it. The unique feature there with the Swiss First Class Lounge is there are two bedrooms within the lounge and almost like a hotel room. And it's got all the amenities in there. They have their own first class amenity kits, Swiss chocolates in the room, a very comfortable bed. But to me, the standout feature was when I opened the curtains of the window, I realized that they're facing the runway. I saw a Swiss A330 take off right in front of my eyes, and I was like, this is an AV geek's dream come true.
You can have all those luxuries, but sometimes the best reward is just looking out the window. Have you been to the TWA Hotel at JFK?
Not yet, but that's my plan. That's on my agenda, rather. Once COVID goes away, just go there, maybe just spend a night.
Absolutely. I've done it twice already. Didn't have to travel very far to get there, and I was very well rewarded with just the views out the window. Absolutely. So you mentioned COVID, of course. We're now in 2021. 2020, how did COVID impact your travel? Were you able to take advantage of your status?
For the first 3 months, yes. And it was pretty much a honeymoon period because, didn't really matter which airline I was flying. So it's pretty unusual. It's like, hey, I have a status with this airline too. And it was an incredible feeling for 3 months. Then COVID came in all of a sudden. And back then, if you remember, the talk was, yeah, we'll be out for like 2 months and everything come back to normal. Turns out that's never the case. And I haven't stepped on a plane since that, right? So I did have some really cool trips in the first quarter of 2020, but ever since, I have had to cancel many trips. Most of them are something that are just in my mind. I would do it again. But there's one particular flight that is gone forever, which is a pretty unique flight. If you Google for it, they call it the loneliest flight on the planet. It's a route from Sydney, Australia to Johannesburg, South Africa. And it's a southbound route. So it many days rather, it grazes the Antarctican continent.
Oh, wow.
Actually see the Antarctica ice sheets out there, right? And Qantas used to fly that using a Boeing 747. Unfortunately, because of COVID, not only did the route get canceled, but Qantas permanently retired their planes. So that opportunity sadly is gone. But apart from that, it's just pretty much no flying at all.
So you've not been on an airplane where you have to wear a mask?
That is correct. I can't wait to get back, but I need a justifiable reason to get there.
Yeah. So what is your plan when things do come back to normal? Do you think you're going to live the life that you lived back in 2019 and the beginning of 2020, or do you have a different plan for the future?
I hope business travel picks up. I think from a personal travel, from a personal travel perspective, I feel we'll get there maybe by the spring of 2022. Just looking at how things are right now with the new variants, potentially immune to the new vaccine as well, right? That's pretty scary. But from a business perspective, I feel that it'll take much longer for people to get to even top status on a single airline, unless the airlines, significantly reduce the thresholds of flying. So I'm not really, pulling my breath for anything to change in the near future, but just keeping my fingers crossed. Maybe another year and a half, and we'll be getting back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, and on all the three carriers, they did extend your status, correct, to the current year?
Yes, they did. They did extend the status, and I believe it's United and American. They also extended the expiration date on the upgrade certificates. So that's been a big plus.
Good to have that opportunity to take advantage of that a little bit.
Yes.
Definitely. So that's unfortunate that you didn't get to fly at all. And, I really, really hope that things get better soon. We all do. We're all just itching to get back in the air. I look forward to, perhaps even talking with you again in the future once you are traveling a little bit to see how things have changed. I think you're actually the first person I've spoken to who has not, who has not actually traveled at all during the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to get a perspective of, going from the full-blown first-class product of pre-COVID to, what things are going to be like, because I'm sure you'll be upgraded many times in the future.
Sure, yeah.
So, great. Well, that was great. It's unbelievable that you were able to do all that. And it's really fascinating to hear your story on how you were able to get to the status levels on all three carriers, which is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Great. And to my viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that little bell button so that you're alerted as to every time I post something new for you. And if you have any questions or comments or would like to be featured in one of these videos, leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you.